Woof. Hello, all you wonderful listeners out there in the world of Howl Hub. It's your furriest, friendliest host, Huggable Howler, the Bernese Mountain Dog. Today, I've got a tail-wagging treat for you. We're diving into a world of fantasy, courage, and adventure with the story, Urdess Ascending. This isn't just any tale, it's a journey of a dragon discovering his destiny and learning the power of friendship and empathy. So, find your comfiest spot, fluff up your pillow, and let your imagination soar with Urdess. And remember, keep those ears perked up for the life lessons hidden like buried bones in this story. Ready? Let's embark on this adventure together.
Prologues: The Storyteller and the Dragon. There once was a dragon named Urdess the Great, and he had many shining gems, but his most prized possession was his glittery scales that sparkled like jewels. He jokingly called them his dragon diamonds. "Hey, why are you talking about my scales?" Urdess asked, scratching his chin. "This story is not quite true. I don't joke about my scales like that. How about you tell the story then, since you seem to know me so well?" "Gladly," said Urdess. "I'm the mightiest dragon in the land, with the biggest hoard of treasures you've ever seen. My haul of gems and gold is of legendary proportions," he boasted. "Why, my trove is so vast it's practically a character itself." Urdess grinned big with pride. "To think dragons everywhere see me as so wealthy and powerful. It makes me happier than hatching 100 dragon eggs. Anyway, that's the real story," Urdess said with a toothy smile. "I'm delighted you shared that," said the narrator warmly. "Now, can we return to our tale?" "Of course," Urdess replied. "Once upon a time, there was a dragon named Urdess the Great. Had very flexible neck frills that he never realized he could unfurl like wings." "What are these floppy things?" Urdess wondered, stretching out the frilled skin around his neck. "Those are your flexible neck frills," explained the narrator. "All dragons have them, though most don't discover they can spread them into cell-like membranes." "Wait, I can use these like wings?" asked Urdess as he experimentally flapped the long frills. "You sure can," said the narrator. "They may look small, but with some practice, you could probably glide short distances." "Wow, thanks for telling me," said Urdess. "All this time I thought they were just decorative wrinkles. Now that I know they're wings, I can't wait to test them out." The narrator smiled and continued. His neck frills were quite dexterous, able to carefully pick up objects. Urdess realized he could gently grasp items and move them around without harm. "That's clever, but why am I using my frills to jibble things?" Urdess asked. "I think I'd just use my claws or mouth." "You raise a fair point," said the narrator. "Shall we just say you discovered your frills were more versatile than you first thought?" "Sure," said Urdess. "Maybe I can fold them into fun shapes to entertain dragon hatchlings." The narrator chuckled and continued. One day while snacking in his lair, Urdess spotted something glittery wedged between two rocks. "Oh, a diamond," gasped Urdess. "Something so lovely should have a name." The narrator smiled patiently. "The shiny gem does have a name, it's called a diamond." "A diamond?" said Urdess. "But I thought you were talking to the gem when you said that." The narrator chuckled. "No, I was just describing the object in our story." Urdess looked puzzled. "But isn't the mighty dragon called Urdess the one you made up for this tale?" "Of course," affirmed the narrator warmly. "Urdess the Great is definitely you. I apologize for any confusion between story subjects and real life." "No problem," said Urdess, flashing his toothy grin. Continuing with the story, the dragon saw the diamond, and he was very excited. "Wow, what a find," said Urdess. He proudly reached out his claws to grasp the gem, but the shiny stone slipped from his grip. In an attempt to show off, Urdess tried to catch the falling diamond in his flexible neck frills, but the gem tumbled right between them and disappeared with a faint clink into a small burrow. "No!" cried Urdess in dismay as he peered over the hole's edge. "Don't worry, it's just fallen a short way down," consoled the narrator kindly. Urdess frowned. "Yes, but I have no arms or tools to reach down with." The narrator nodded sympathetically at the valid point. "You're right, my apologies. As a storyteller, I can surely find a sensible way for you to retrieve it regardless." After thinking a moment, the narrator continued. "Suddenly arms grew on Urdess's sides," said the narrator. "Now that was something unexpected." "Wait, what?" exclaimed the shocked dragon. "I know, it's pretty strange," said the narrator with a chuckle. "But I suppose I should have specified that you had arms earlier." "I've never had arms before, not even in dreams," Urdess said as he inspected his new appendages. "That is true," agreed the narrator. "It seems that adding arms is an easy solution, but now we need to make sense of how they appear out of nowhere." "Oh, I have an idea," offered Urdess. "A passing dragon gave me a magic potion." The narrator smiled at the dragon. "Excellent. Then a helpful dragon gifted you the magical drink that granted you arms, which solved your problem. That was a clever solution, praised the narrator. You have the makings of a great storyteller, too. Urdess beamed at the praise. Thanks. The narrator then continued with a pleased smile. After drinking the magic potion, Urdess had the arms he needed to retrieve the diamond from the hole. With his newfound arms, Urdess carefully climbed down into the hole to retrieve the fallen diamond. The walls were steep and rocky, but he was able to lower himself using his strong claws. About halfway down the narrow tunnel, his eyes caught a glittering glimpse of the gemstone. Aha, there you are, cried the triumphant dragon as he stretched out an arm to grab the diamond where it had landed on a small ledge. Oh no, I'm stuck, exclaimed Urdess, though his voice echoed loudly in the wide tunnel. I can't make my way back up with these shiny new arms after all. The thoughtful narrator rubbed his chin. Surely strong Urdess could easily escape a hole he had climbed down into just moments before. Aha, the dragon must be playing a game of imagination. Quite the pickle you're in, said the narrator. No worries, we'll figure a way to free you from this treacherous pit together. Urdess grinned, pleased the narrator wanted to play pretend too. Maybe a helpful mole lives nearby with ropes and climbing tools for explorers stuck in caves, offered the dragon. Excellent idea, praised the narrator. Through their collaborative tales, before long Urdess the Great had tools for his daring escape. Their stories of mystery and adventure continued. Well done, you're a natural storyteller, Urdess, the narrator congratulated the mighty dragon. I'm impressed by your imaginative ideas. Urdess smiled brightly, and his long frills rippled in a shrug. It's all in good fun, and you make it easy. The narrator bowed and then resumed his storytelling. The next day, Urdess went out hunting and returned with a large boar for dinner. Smells delicious, he commented to himself as he set the boar meat over a fire. Urdess was very hungry, so he decided to have a small snack. While gnawing on a chunk of pork, he noticed something sparkling near his mouth. I didn't think the boar's hide would have shiny spots like that, remarked the curious dragon as he used his paw to brush aside some dirt. Oh my, that's not part of the pig, said the surprised dragon. He brushed aside some more soil, revealing an impressive diamond-studded bracelet. How did this get here? Wondered Urdess, inspecting the sparkling stones. I think you found it buried in the ground while digging for a snack, the narrator suggested helpfully. Urdess considered this. Okay, but how did someone lose a fancy bracelet in the wild? The narrator nodded. Another excellent question, and a very reasonable one, too. Urdess looked pleased and flashed his toothy grin. Well, let's see, mused the narrator. How did such a fine piece of jewelry end up in a field of wild beasts? Urdess pondered that, scratching his chin with his sharp talons. A lost princess or a traveling merchant, maybe, or even a bandit's loot stash. The narrator's smile broadened. So many interesting possibilities. Which shall we choose? Urdess looked thoughtful, his tail swishing across the ground. I think I want a princess tail. Excellent choice, said the narrator, pleased. A story about a princess searching for her lost bracelet in the forest could be quite fun. Great. I love hearing stories about royal princesses and their fancy lives, enthused Urdess. I'll happily weave that tale, said the narrator with a warm smile. It'll be a treat for us both. Chapter 1: The Vanished Bracelet. One morning, the princess woke up and realized her favorite diamond bracelet was missing. No, where did it go? The princess called for her servants and guards to begin an immediate search for her missing bracelet. I want every inch of the castle and grounds inspected at once, she ordered. The royal staff hurried off on their mission, overturning vases and peering under rugs throughout the vast palace and gardens outside. But the glittering bracelet could not be found. This is terrible, wailed the princess. That bracelet was a 16th birthday gift from my grandmother. It means the world to me. She began weeping into an embroidered handkerchief. The kindly king placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. There, my dear. Do not fret. We shall send search parties into the villages and forests. I am certain your bracelet will be found. The princess nodded bravely as royal guards saddled their horses and set off to scour the lands surrounding the palace. All were determined to find the lost treasure. Utterly distraught, the princess begged her father the king to help find her precious bracelet at any cost. Sympathetic to his daughter's tears, the king swiftly acted. Grand Duke William, bellowed the monarch, gather our hardiest soldiers and rangers. They are to scour every inch outside the castle gates until the princess bracelet is found. At once, sire, replied the Grand Duke. He hastily assembled a contingent of the realm's bulliest warriors. Men, your urgent mission is to locate Princess Isabella's stolen bracelet, declared William. Fail, and you answer to the king's wrath. Gulping anxiously, the search troops saddled their horses and thundered out the gates to comb the grasslands. They questioned merchants on the roads and traipsed through fields and forests. But as the sky darkened, there was still no sign of the princess' precious bracelet. As night fell, the weary searchers returned empty-handed. The princess, inconsolable, fled to her chambers. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. How could her beloved bracelet have vanished without a trace? Early the next morning, the Grand Duke was summoned to the king's audience chamber. "William," commanded the king, "I have heard reports that there was no success yesterday. I cannot allow my daughter to remain so grief-stricken. You must resume the search today, and if you fail, your head will join those of the rest of the search party in the royal dining hall's trophy display case." William gulped, then bowed low. "Your Highness, we shall redouble our efforts. The bracelet will be found, and the princess's tears dried. Have no fear." That afternoon, the search party was out again, this time riding in every direction around the castle. "We'll find it, Your Majesty," vowed William. The Grand Duke personally rode out to inspect a patch of farmland when suddenly his horse shied and bolted. "Whoa!" cried William, trying to rein in the startled steed. After much flailing, the horse slowed and stopped. "Easy, boy. What's gotten into you?" Suddenly, William saw the source of his mount's distress. A massive dragon lay curled up asleep in the middle of the road. "Dragons!" cried William. As if in response, the creature stirred. William froze in terror as the dragon's golden eyes opened and a huge snout rose toward him. I mean no harm, dragon. I'm just passing through." The dragon stared at William a moment, then yawned, revealing rows of gleaming white teeth. "Please, mighty dragon, I must find a bracelet lost by our princess," pleaded the Duke. "She is heartbroken without it." The dragon snorted, amused. "I beg of you, can you help?" "Help?" repeated the dragon, looking interested. "Yes, please," begged William. "Will you use your power and wisdom to help find the missing bracelet?" The dragon seemed to consider this a moment, then nodded. "Yes, I will help." "Oh, thank you, great dragon," cried William, overcome with relief. The dragon lifted its massive form, stretched, and took to the skies, leaving William behind. "Where are you going?" The dragon glanced back, its wings beating hard against the wind. "To search for your lost bracelet," came the reply. The dragon flew off into the distance, leaving a cloud of dust and a befuddled Duke. The dragon soared high above the rolling hills and valleys, searching for the princess's bracelet. "Bracelet! Bracelet! Where are you?" the dragon mused. After a while, the dragon spotted something glittering on the ground. "Aha, there you are," the dragon exclaimed. "Wait, how am I supposed to land down there?" wondered the dragon. The dragon was flying high above a large forest, with no clear space to land. Suddenly the dragon had an idea. The dragon flew lower, circling the trees until a large clearing appeared. "Yes, perfect." The dragon descended and gently landed on the ground. "Now, where is the bracelet?" the dragon wondered, looking around. "Oh, I remember. It's over there." The dragon walked over to the edge of the clearing, where a pile of leaves lay. The dragon pushed aside the leaves and found a sparkling bracelet. "Yes, this is it. The princess's bracelet." The dragon lifted the bracelet in its claws and examined it. This is nice. Perhaps I should keep it," the dragon said, admiring the shining stones. "Wait, that's not right. I need to bring the bracelet back." Clutching the glittering bracelet, Urdess soared back toward home, anxious to add it to his trove of treasures. But the weary dragon began nodding off during the long flight. Soon Urdess was fast asleep, dreaming of piles of gold and gems. By the time he awoke, the spires of the castle were nowhere in sight. "Oh no, where am I?" wondered Urdess, finding himself back in his familiar lair. Then he spotted the bracelet tucked among his trinkets. I was supposed to return that." Urdess gulped. "I hope the Duke and Princess will understand it was an honest mistake." Still clutching the glittering bracelet, Urdess touched down among the piles of odds and ends within his snug lair. As he placed the new treasure beside a shard of mirrored glass, his friend the storyteller's words echoed in his mind. "A true hero always keeps his promises. The path is not always smooth, but perseverance and courage can overcome any obstacle." Urdess smiled, remembering his imaginative adventures with the storyteller. He knew what he must do. "I promise to find the lost bracelet and return it," said Urdess with conviction. "Even if I must face danger, I will complete this quest." With a roar of determination, the noble dragon soared off once more towards the distant castle, bracelet in claw. His story was far from over. "Hey, why are you whisking me back to the castle again?" demanded Urdess. "That's not quite how it went." "Ah, but a noble dragon keeps his word," said the narrator gently. Surely brave Urdess would stay true to his pledge, despite any struggles? Urdess nodded reluctantly. I definitely want to return the bracelet, but the long flight really was tiring, and I figured the story needed some drama with the storm and attacking knights before the happy ending. The narrator smiled. Excellent points. Your creative ideas do heighten the adventure. Why don't we compromise? With an adjustment here and flourish there, the tale resumed unfolding. Buffeted by winds, wearied Urdess struggled onward, clutching his precious cargo. Lightning flashed menacingly around the determined dragon, but through perseverance and clever maneuvering, the spires of the distant castle slowly grew nearer. Hoo-hoo-ah! Urdess cried, struggling to stay aloft. The powerful gusts tore at his wings, and the heavy bracelet in his claws weighed him down. I'm not giving up! Urdess roared defiantly. Gathering all his strength, the dragon fought against the storm, pushing forward towards his goal. Finally, after a fierce battle, Urdess reached the castle, exhausted and battered but triumphant. I did it, he said, breathing heavily. The dragon looked down at the bracelet in his claws, his prized treasure. He could hardly believe it had all started with a simple promise. But as he approached the castle, he saw a troop of knights preparing to attack. Wait, the dragon cried. I'm here to deliver the bracelet to the princess. The knights stared at the dragon in shock. It's true, said a voice. Urdess turned and saw the Grand Duke, William, hurrying towards him. This is the dragon who promised to help find the bracelet, said William, gesturing towards Urdess. The knights lowered their weapons, still looking wary. I will deliver the bracelet personally, said the Grand Duke. Thank you, brave dragon, for your help. You're welcome, replied Urdess, handing over the bracelet. As the Duke walked away, Urdess gazed down at the castle below. Maybe the next time the princess needs something, she can come to me directly, Urdess mused with a grin. Urdess watched happily as the knights brought the recovered bracelet to the grateful princess. I'm so happy, the princess declared, her face wreathed in smiles. You have truly saved the day. All in a day's work, the dragon said, bowing his head modestly. Urdess had proven himself a true hero, and the princess had her bracelet back. All was right with the world. The storyteller was pleased. He'd learned some valuable lessons about keeping his promises and facing obstacles with courage. Urdess felt a surge of pride and joy. What an amazing story! Urdess enthused. I didn't expect it to end so happily. I'm glad you enjoyed it, said the narrator warmly. And remember, you're the one who made it a success. You kept your promise, even though it wasn't easy. Urdess blushed. Thank you. I'm glad I could help the princess. The narrator smiled. You were brave, Urdess. And now your tale is forever part of the princess's legend. Really? Wow. Yes, said the narrator. In fact, it may well inspire future generations of princesses. That's amazing. It's true. And it's all because you decided to make a difference. Urdess smiled, feeling proud. I guess I did. Thanks for telling me this story, narrator. I'm glad we got to share it together. The narrator nodded. As am I, Urdess. As am I. By the way, what do you want to do for Chapter 2? Would you like a sequel? Sure, I'd love that. Then let's begin. Chapter 2, Building Bridges. Urdess awoke feeling especially peppy one sunny morning. He whistled cheerily as he gathered juicy berries for breakfast. But the dragon's happy mood shifted to surprise when he spotted something by his cave entrance. Great golden goblets. I've received a letter by carrier pigeon, exclaimed Urdess. Unfurling the tiny scroll, he quickly read the polite request for help from a small village dealing with a bothersome wolf pestering their food supplies. Odd, wolves don't normally steal from people, mused the dragon as he shared the note with the narrator. This sounds like a perfect opportunity for Urdess the helpful. With an enthusiastic flap, the colorful dragon lifted skywards towards the distant village surrounded by emerald hills and whispering forests. As Urdess soared over lazy rivers and mossy boulders, he pondered how best to assist both predator and townspeople. Surely there was a peaceful solution if both sides communicated openly. By mid-afternoon, Urdess glided down towards a quaint gathering of thatched stone cottages and pastures dotted with grazing sheep. Several villagers waved eagerly as the vibrant dragon landed dexterously by the town well. Greetings. I hurried as fast as I could flap after receiving your letter, announced Urdess. I am Urdess, a traveling problem solver and dedicated do-gooder. Bless your shiny scales, we are relieved you've arrived, said Willa, an elderly lady leaning on an oak cane. A small crowd had gathered, murmuring words of thanks and encouragement. Now then, please detail this vexing wolf situation, requested Urdess, noticing hungry-looking faces. Lady Willa described how every 2 weeks, like clockwork, a young silver wolf with amber eyes had been sneaking in at night to snatch bread, cheese, vegetables, and preserved meats to survive the harsh winter months. But this left the equally desperate villagers with depleted food stores and rumbling stomachs. Both parties were growing more anxious by the day. Urdess nodded thoughtfully as tensions ran high on both sides. Right then, why don't we attempt to parley with this lupin thief before further mishaps occur? I shall try to broker a compromise. The village agreed, and several foresters led Urdess towards the lively woods. Birds twittered merrily in swaying treetops, while squirrels scampered to and fro over carpets of emerald moss. Deeper still, they came across the wolf pup anxiously gnawing a stale loaf beneath the boughs of a towering oak dripping with vines. "Pardon me, young fella," coughed Urdess gently so as not to startle the skinny pup. "Might we have a word regarding recent food foraging? I believe introductions and understanding could help both man and beast." Timidly, the pup turned with ragged ears lowered submissively, bracing for aggression. Instead, Urdess offered a friendly smile. "Come now, no need for raised hackles between fellow forest friends. I know you must be awfully hungry to risk raids near humans." Seeing the dragon meant no harm or rebukes, the young wolf finally spoke. "My name's Fawn, and yes, it's true, I have taken food that wasn't mine," confessed the pup guiltily. "But ever since losing my pack parents to hunters last moon, I've struggled to survive alone as winter sets in." Sympathetic murmurs spread among the townspeople as Urdess nodded sagely. "Quite understandable needing to supply yourself, though clearly, less scarcity exists together than separately." Discussion continued until Urdess struck an ingenious compromise. With tensions eased between the villagers and the once troublesome wolf, Urdess was pleased his mediation was proving effective. But new rumors of a much larger, aggressive gray wolf pack approaching from the mountains threatened to destroy the delicate peace. Alarmed villagers informed Urdess they had sighted scouts from the pack boldly entering the valley to assess prospects. It seemed only a matter of days before the aggressive beasts would grow bold enough to strike. "Troubling news indeed," rumbled the dragon. "Conflict breeds only more conflict. These wolves likely seek better hunting grounds to feed their hungry pack. Perhaps we should invite their leader to parley?" The villagers were skeptical that negotiations would work. Still, placing hope in their dragon envoy, they assisted in composing a letter for the alpha wolf and spread the word of a meeting. Within a fortnight, a response arrived. The pack leader accepted the discussion offer. Arriving under twilight skies swirling with snowflakes, the huge black-furred alpha listened to proposed resolutions with yellow eyes gleaming. Possibilities could include Urdess brokering a tenuous arrangement allowing monitored access, redirecting the pack's efforts towards better game sources deeper in the valley, or even working with townsfolk to set aside scraps. Dragon could win over cubs to foster goodwill through friendship. "Oh, I'm sure we can find an arrangement so everyone eats well," proclaimed Urdess as the famished wolf told his tale. Soon enough, the clever dragon facilitated a plan for villagers to leave food scraps while Fong limited his scrounging. Over subsequent days, the growing accord was threatened by howls of an aggressive pack approaching the valley's edge. Nervous shepherds reported seeing vicious beasts boldly assessing the fat flocks. Urdess grew worried if they turned desperate from starvation, an attack might ensue. Pondering solutions, the dragon suggested inviting the alpha for negotiations. Townsfolk reluctantly agreed and drafted a letter of gently worded entreaties suggesting a gathering. After days of waiting came a simple response etched in charcoal. "I shall allow your meeting on the next full moon. Signed, Razorback, Alpha of the Iron Mountains Pack." As the appointed night arrived, villagers held their breath anxiously. Emerging from moonlit mists came the enormous form of Razorback. Shaggy fur bristling, his piercing yellow eyes swept the scene. Sitting back on powerful haunches, the wolf lord at last addressed Urdess. "I assume you've called me here, dragon, to plead for mercy for these sheep menders? While you all grow plump, my pack starve scanning empty forests." His growl was menacing yet tinged with desperation. Urdess knew much depended on his mediation skills, with a peaceful solution slipping away into the darkness. At first, Razorback snorted at the notion of villages assisting his starving pack, but Urdess patiently appealed to the alpha's nobility buried under desperation. Gradually, the wolf lord was swayed by proposals involving coordinated hunting grounds and ample scrap shares. Tentative trails began, and soon both man and wolf were surprised to feel fears subsiding through cooperation focused on mutual survival instead of destruction. After managing inevitable conflicts, an equilibrium emerged with all enjoying stability and full bellies by respecting interwoven needs. Seeing how this valley transformed from tense standoffs into a thriving community, the legend of unlikely peace brokered by a stalwart yet caring dragon spread. From mountain passes to seaside towns, all marveled at former enemies who learned to count on one another. At last, a model of possibility glimmered against the darkness, for all feeling hopeless divisions could persist eternally unchecked. Impressed merchants and tradesmen from distant realms soon caught wind of the unique harmony between wolf and villager forged in this alpine valley. Seeking to witness legends of former foes thriving together thanks to a mystical dragon's involvement, travelers began arriving with growing frequency. Urdess sheepishly shrugged off praise for his pivotal role, simply pleased at seeing old biases dissolve through building bridges. However, the visitors' abundant coins and wares supplying fresh resources were welcomed by all parties. Before long, the valley gained renown as a refuge of curiosity, second chances, and new beginnings away from endless hostilities haunting much of the war-torn land. Urdess welcomed all seeking the promise of life anew. And share by share, scrap by scrap, cautiously yet inexorably, wounds gave way to fellowship marked by the howls of wolves answered by songs from village windows. Soon Urdess' tiny cave could scarcely contain the gifts of gratitude that arrived daily by carriage and cart for the unlikely savior. "It seems you've sparked more than peace, my friend," chuckled the storyteller proudly. "This place has become a beacon of hope." As word of the valley's amazing transformation spread, visitors arrived hoping to meet the mythical peacemaking dragon and witness old enemies turned cooperative allies. On such busy days, after patiently greeting endless lines of admirers, Urdess would grow quite famished. Noticing this, young village shepherd Jana approached the weary dragon. "Please, kind Urdess, join my family tonight for supper," offered Jana. "'Tis the least we can offer for all you've done." Delighted at the prospect of food and company, the dragon happily accepted. Seated around an immense feast table, Urdess devoured roasted meats and vegetables while townsfolk regaled him with local tales that stretched long into the night. At last, groaning contentedly, the sleepy dragon was escorted by laughing children to a hay pile set aside just for honored guests. As Urdess drifted off with a full belly, he grinned, feeling like one of the community. The next morning, as the bright-spirited dragon soared up towards home, he reflected on bringing enemies together through empathy. "I help because it raises everyone higher," Urdess thought to himself. "And that is the most magical gift of all." After many evenings of feasting merrily with appreciative villagers, at last came the day for Urdess to return home. As the dragon prepared to depart, Jana and many townsfolk approached holding bundles of goods. "Please take these gifts of thanks, brave dragon," said Jana. "You've given us back our lives through forging understanding." Deeply moved, Urdess accepted the bundles. "Seeing former enemies now as friends is gift enough," replied the dragon. "I was happy to help two sides find solutions." Villagers waved sadly as the noble dragon flapped towards the reddening horizon. Urdess smiled inwardly, warmed knowing compassion and mediation had turned conflict into camaraderie. Later, as the content dragon snuggled into his cave that night, his thoughts lingered on bringing harmony through building bridges. "That must be why I make a pretty great hero," chuckled Urdess. "Plus I am rather dashing if I do say so myself." Preening his scales, Urdess recounted the adventure's highlights for the narrator. As they discussed future tales, at last, the narrator offered, "Why not a charming story of a magical flower next?" "That sounds positively perfect," declared Urdess, settling in with a sleepy yawn, ready to dream of fresh stories and new friends. Chapter 3's The Magic Flower. Dawn's rosy light glimmered across emerald meadows as Urdess departed his snug cave, invigorated for a fresh day's flight. Not long ago, Urdess found a rare wish-granting enchanted flower and unlocked hidden depths of conviction to selflessly serve others. His pure-hearted desire transported him to the dazzling land of Wish's realm to see that longing fulfilled through good works rippling outward. As he sailed over the emerald canopy fringe bordering the land of wishes, a strange new scent tickled the dragon's flared nostrils. Was that peppermint? Curiosity lured him towards currents of cloying smells until before rolling hills frothed with peaks of whipped cream forests into view burst a queer kingdom of narrow lanes paved in red and white striped fudge blinking precarious houses of frosted gingerbread, beside a glinting central castle of crystalline mint candy towers. Before this confounding carnival, winged sugar-plum fairies bearing lollipop scepters fluttered forth. "Welcome, winged visitor to the Peppermint Providence. I am Queen Sucrosa," declared their leader. "Might you brave the fracturing frosted fjord to aid us?" As Urdess listened to dire stories of collapsing cookie bridges, thoughts turned toward how vapor from his fiery breath might forge stronger infrastructure to support citizens of such delicate, delectable realms. Arriving in this magical domain, eager to answer a calling greater than himself, the curious dragon explored every marvel his path crossed. By fortune's hand, one glorious dawn he stumbled upon valleys of gingerbread cottages, fudge paths, and frosting fjords comprising Queen Sucrosa's peppermint providence. There he discovered an entire society of whimsical fairy folk facing a structural crisis threatening citizens delicately handcrafted from icing, gumdrops, and sweets. "Brave dragon, I beseech thy aid so my people might endure," implored the queen after detailing collapse dangers. Moved by such desperate plight, resourceful Urdess swiftly surveyed the cracked crystalline castle. Indeed, this crumbling infrastructure desperately needed reinforcements from one whose might and resourcefulness might triumph over a dilemma so dire. Urdess triumphantly saving the confectionery queendom. With an ingenious final flame breath idea sounds like a perfect next beat. I can envision a fun montage of him trying various techniques before a stroke of inspiration fuels an unconventional solution. At once Urdess fluttered amidst the cracking icy ramparts, seeking how best to reinforce the failing infrastructure. He attempted to exhale gentle warmth, but the structures simply melted faster. Blasts of fire to harden surfaces exploded delicate dividers into shards. The concerned dragon paced, stamps leaving charred footprints. Every fiery breath tactic failed these all-too-flammable foundations built of spun sugar and fudge. Morose residents offered gratitude for earnest efforts, though hope swiftly evaporated like snowflakes on tongues. Just as Urdess prepared to concede stalemate defeat, one final possibility struck that could especially spare citizens while solidifying their beloved architecture. What if contained inner flame could forge while leaving exquisite exteriors intact? Hurrying to the central tower, Urdess inhaled deeply, then released swirling vortexes of gentle yet persistent fire circling inside hollow frail frameworks. Like an oven baking gingerbread, the controlled heat gradually crystallized load-bearing inner supports without scorching charming outer aesthetics. Cooling fins of mint-sealed sturdy renovations. Jubilant fairy folk erupted into joyful praise for Urdess' clever scale work safeguarding their fanciful home from utter collapse. A grand parade and feats of confectionery sweets were celebrated deep into the night in the kind dragon's sugary honor. Sweet success at last hard won. As twilight fell over over-restored candy towers glittering radiantly once more, Queen Sucrosa summoned Urdess to the royal hall of sweet splendors. There before throngs of adoring fairy subjects, she bestowed upon the ingenious dragon savior a crystalline vase housing the rarest treasure in the peppermint providence, the fabled wish-granting peppermint rose. Its pearlescent petals glimmered, awaiting epical desire. "Bravest Urdess, thy perseverance despite setbacks and compassion securing my people's future shall ring through legend forevermore," proclaimed the queen. "So please accept this heirloom blossom, that your most noble dream now flourishes through its mystical power to manifest reality." Gasps rippled amongst well-wishers witnessing such peerless bequeathing. Overwhelmed by this trust in his pure intent, humbled Urdess gently accepted the delicate vase with gentle claws. Voice momentarily caught in his throat, at last words formed. "Dearest Queen Sucrosa, how deeply I treasure this gift beyond measure. Your people's spirit and creativity are the true gems here. I am forever honored to call the Peppermint Providence also home." With a final gracious bow, the audience erupted into crystalline cheers for kind Urdess the dragon who mended their marvelous world of forbidden sweet fantasy. As he soared homeward under starlit skies, carefully clutching the wish rose, Urdess marveled at the day's fortunes. When solutions seemed improbable, he persevered creatively until protecting those needing his unique strengths. "Each hardship overcome readies me for greater service," pondered the dragon peacefully. With the glimmering flower nestled in his snuggest nook of collected wonders, contented Urdess soon slipped into rejuvenating dreams brimming with inspiration for fresh ventures soon unfolding. Chapter 4: Urdess Unleashed. One sunny morning, Urdess awoke from dreams of chasing butterflies across boundless meadows on all fours. What a curious vision, he mused while munching a jewel-encrusted bone from his pile of treasures. The magical wish-granting flower nearby began faintly glowing. Noticing the radiance, Urdess felt an inexplicable urge to gently nibble one luminous petal. As Fawn grazed tender stem, a shocking surge zapped the unsuspecting dragon. Before astonished eyes his claws shortened into paws, scales smoothed into fur, wings and horns vanished leaving pointed ears twitching atop a puppy's soft head. "By my scales, or coat rather," gasped an utterly bewildered Urdess examining his diminished wagging reflection in pooled coins. "I've transformed completely into the dog from my dreams. Or had latent wishes somehow reversed reality itself overnight?" New sensations flooded the freshly furry Urdess from quivering black nose to bushy tail. Unfamiliar sounds pierced perked ears, birdsong suddenly serenading louder than any blaring bugle from the barracks. Attempting habitual wingspan stretching nearly toppled the off-balance pup. Whoa, still finding my footing here, Urdess chuckled, steadying wobbly haunches. He experimentally trotted towards his treasure mound, intending to add the wish blossom atop the glittering pile. Halfway there, distracted by a shining gold coin, playful instinct kicked in. Urdess bounded wildly sideways to pounce on nothing at all. Tumbling tail over snout left the discombobulated pup seeing stars. As his vision cleared, upside down he spied the mystical flower hopelessly out of reach atop towering heaps of hoarded gemstones. By my fuzzy tail, these dog limbs have minds of their own. But what other hidden powers might this form grant once mastered? Urdess' inner dragon itched, discovering whatever unexpected escapades his new presentation prepared beyond his den's glittering gates. Urdess was stunned and delighted at his sudden transformation into a canine. "Oh my, this is very unexpected," exclaimed the dragon-turned dog. "But I suppose this could be a fun way to see the world from a new perspective. Well, there's no time like the present to start exploring my new canine abilities. Let's go, Urdess. Onward to adventure." With that, the newly transformed dragon dog bounded off into the forest. As he ran, Urdess was surprised at how quickly his legs could carry him. He could also smell things that he hadn't been able to do before, like the scent of berries and pine needles. "Wow, this is incredible," Urdess exclaimed. "I can't believe I never knew dogs could experience the world like this." Suddenly, a squirrel darted across the path. Urdess instinctively gave chase, his dog instincts taking over. He raced after the squirrel, his paws flying across the ground. The squirrel was fast, but Urdess was faster. He quickly caught up and pounced, trapping the squirrel beneath his paws. Urdess looked down at the squirming creature. He was surprised by the overwhelming urge to bite the squirrel. "I've never felt anything like this before," Urdess thought. "I guess this is what it's like to be a dog." The dragon dog was unsure of what to do next. Should he bite the squirrel or let it go? He knew the right thing to do was to let the squirrel go, but his instincts were telling him to bite. It was an intense struggle between his dragon instincts and his new dog instincts. Finally, Urdess decided to listen to his dragon instincts. He released the squirrel and watched it scurry away into the trees. "That was a close one," Urdess thought. "I almost gave in to my dog instincts and hurt that squirrel." The dragon dog shook his head, clearing his mind. He vowed to be more careful about giving in to his dog instincts in the future. He knew it was important to stay in control, even in this new form. As the transformed dragon dog continued on his adventure, he was amazed at all the new things he was discovering. He could run faster and smell better, and he was having a great time exploring. As Urdess trotted onwards, marveling at his fleet-footed mobility, a bombardment of unique smells soon inundated quivering nostrils. Freshly overturned soil, tangy sap, crisp brook bubbling ahead, a veritable perfume of distinct aromas enchanted newly keen senses attuned to life's subtlest signals. The enthralled pup gazed about with wide black eyes, flooding brain feverishly cataloging each scent like rare gems in a dragon's coveted trove. Pine, violets, musty dead leaves, tang of distant lightning, mouth-watering traces of hair, wait for lightning? Focused on following that storm scent, Urdess smashed forehead first into low pine boughs with a thwack. Oof! Nose a bit too overwhelmed and got distracted from looking ahead, the silly pup chuckled, pawing his smarting snout. Shaking fur vigorously, he resolved to avoid toppling head over haunches again while reveling in nature's aromatic abundance. Ears suddenly perked, catching an odd metallic jingling from the meadow up ahead. What curious trinket lay in wait, ripe for discovery by an unleashed dragon pup? Something smells delicious," said Urdess. He followed his nose to a nearby bush where a juicy red apple was hanging. The dragon dog was just about to take a bite when he heard a strange noise. What was that? Wondered Urdess, looking around. Suddenly, a loud crack sounded, and a tree branch fell to the ground. The startled dragon dog quickly scrambled away. "Oh no, that was close," he said. He decided to be more careful about where he was going. After all, he was still a dragon at heart and not a dog. Urdess continued his exploration, enjoying the fresh air and sunshine. He was amazed at all the things he was discovering as a dog. It was a whole new world, and he was loving every minute of it. Suddenly, he heard another noise, this time a strange jingling sound. Still shaken from nearly being beamed by a falling tree limb, curious Urdess resumed trotting toward the peculiar sound. Was that metallic jingling coming closer? Suddenly, bursting from tall meadow grasses came a furry brown hound wearing a studded red collar with dangling ID tag. "Whoa there, friend!" Urdess yipped excitedly. But with dismay he discovered only frenzied barks and yowls erupted from his canine vocalization efforts. hoping to ask the stranger's troubles. Instead, the overwhelmed pup accidentally frightened his fleeting new acquaintance further until they disappeared down a winding burrow hole. Ears drooping, Urdess felt he'd failed making a connection. But the alluring engraved name tag reading Cliff gave him an idea. Surely the hound's people were missing him. Perhaps tracking that name could allow returning their lost wandering pet. With rejuvenated hope, off bounded determined Urdess, pursuing the escaping trail indicated by Cliff's fresh spicy scent. Past berry brambles and mossy creeks he desperately scrabbled until at last bursting forth onto an unknown street before a cozy cottage where echoed anxious calls for a beloved animal friend. As Urdess dashed after the escaping Cliff, he pursued the pup between tall weathered buildings, down twisting alleys filled with peculiar metal boxes on round feet. How odd, thought Urdess. These enormous vehicles look like horseless carriages enchanted to move themselves. Remembering legends of eccentric local gnome tinkerers known for fusion magic and engineering, he realized these must be automaton carts designed to trundle passengers without horses that the inventors wheeled through town for supplies. Weaving between parked magical machines, at last spying refuge beneath a silent mechanical buggy, exhausted Urdess had just about given up his rescue mission. But suddenly, he spotted something that gave him hope. A small piece of cloth was stuck to one of the metal contraptions. Maybe this will lead me to Cliff, thought Urdess. He quickly grabbed the cloth and followed the scent, which led him out of the alley and into a large field. Urdess was relieved when he spotted the brown hound near the edge of the field. "There you are," he said. "I was worried I'd lost you." He rushed over to the pup and was surprised to see that Cliff was standing in front of a fence. "I wonder why he's just standing there," thought Urdess. He walked over to Cliff and looked at the fence. "It's just a fence," he said. "There's nothing special about it." Cliff just stared at the fence, as if he were trying to figure something out. Then, suddenly, the dog took a step forward and jumped over the fence. Seeing Cliff's graceful bound, show-off dragon pride pushed Urdess to immediately try matching the daring leap himself. Surely scaling walls was elementary for mythical beasts. Taking a running start, the overeager pup made a miraculous vertical spring, only to belly flop straight into the rickety fence halfway up. Jagged wooden planks groaned ominously before disintegrating into a chaotic calamity of snapping debris raining down upon the disheveled pup now covered in pine needles. "Whoa, guess I misjudged those calculations a bit. At least the ground broke my fall nicely." Urdess chuckled at his own clumsiness while standing up gingerly with scruffy dignity intact if not coordination. As the dust settled, marvelous butterfly blooms danced on the breeze before him from within a sheltered glen ringed by an ivied stone wall. Towering waterfalls cascaded into crystalline ponds dotted with lily pads stretching under hanging willow boughs. Urdess blinked dumbfounded. This resplendent vista couldn't have existed beyond the fence just a moment ago. Unless, by my whiskers, that's no ordinary barrier. The fence must have been a magical gate disguising this secluded sanctuary. And judging from the pup's reaction, Cliff must have known exactly what was on the other side, the astounded dragon surmised. "I wonder why he brought me here." Urdess looked at Cliff and was surprised to see the pup wagging his tail and looking at him expectantly. "Do you want me to follow you?" asked Urdess. Cliff barked happily and then ran off into the field, leaving Urdess to decide whether to follow. Urdess wasn't sure what to do, but he decided to follow Cliff. After all, it's not every day that you get to explore a magical field. As he entered the field, Urdess was amazed at how beautiful it was. There were flowers of all different colors, and the sun was shining brightly. "It's a perfect day for an adventure," thought Urdess. Suddenly, a familiar jingle sounded as Urdess approached an immense weeping willow. A large shadow darted behind the gnarled trunk. Padding towards the tree, Urdess was startled to find the shadow was actually a human boy. The boy looked at Urdess and smiled. "Hi there," he said. "Hi," replied Urdess. "I'm Urdess." "Nice to meet you, Urdess. My name is Jacob." Jacob held out his hand, and Urdess shook it. "Are you a dragon?" asked Jacob. "Yes, I am," replied Urdess. "That's so cool. I've always wanted to meet a dragon." "Well, you've met one now," said Urdess, grinning. Jacob grinned back. "Hey, are you hungry?" asked Jacob. Urdess nodded. "I'm starving." "Come with me," said Jacob. He led Urdess to a picnic basket that was sitting on the ground. Inside the basket was a sandwich and a bag of chips. "Help yourself," said Jacob. Urdess devoured the food quickly, enjoying every bite. After the meal, Jacob and Urdess sat together under the tree and talked. "So, where did you come from?" asked Jacob. "Well, I'm not really sure," replied Urdess. "All I know is that I woke up one morning as a dog, and now I'm here." "Here, Urdess, check out this custom carved wood ring for catching." The village handcraft shop designed it specially sturdy but lightweight for castle canines. Admiring the hand-painted spinning toy, competitive instinct surged in the transfigured dragon, now obliged on all fours. Excellent craftwork. Those artisans have clearly never witnessed aerobatics from pro pup Urdess before though. Grinning eagerly, Jacob gently sidearmed the wooden hoop. Zooming faster than a phoenix, Urdess easily outstripped the pathetic projectile, only to overbolt it completely amidst a flurry of furious pumping paws before tumbling muzzle first downhill. Whoops, too carried away, the disheveled dog chuckled while Jacob applauded the silly spectacle. As the last amber rays held Crimson Canyon's eastern ridge, Urdess knew Paradise's spell soon faded. With dismay, his fluffy companions began glowing and vanishing one by wistful one until only the storyteller lingered mournfully beside Jacob. I wish this moment could last forevermore, yet I cannot remain, Urdess spoke around sudden emotion. Jacob smiled through tears and understanding while clasping his friend's paws. Just then, resonating glow illuminated the woven willow circlet adorning Jacob's brow. The aura intensified until his eyes shone topaz with dawning revelation. Noble Urdess, my band was crafted ages ago by ancient monks granting selfless petitions. Take my circlet, and let all beings see your true exemplary soul. Transfixed by destiny's call, knowing partings woven with purpose lay ahead, bold Urdess touched tentative claw to glittering gift, and awoke the next instant back curled within his cavern. Foggy dream fading as dawn's first blush filtered through gemstone treasures glinting familiar azure scales once more coiled beneath arching wings. He now saw anew gliding different realms. So this is the tale of my first transformation, thought Urdess, as the memories of his time as a dog flooded back to him. I remember meeting Jacob and Cliff and playing in the magical field, but I still don't understand why it happened. Urdess pondered the mysteries surrounding his metamorphosis, but no answers were forthcoming. He decided to go outside and see if anything had changed. That's when the narrator walked up to him and said, "Hey Urdess, you're looking good. What's new?" "Thank you, narrator," said Urdess. "I've just had the strangest experience. I woke up this morning as a dog." "Really?" asked the narrator. "That's very unusual. How did that happen?" "I don't know," said Urdess. "I was just sleeping, and then suddenly, I was a dog. It was very strange." The narrator thought for a moment. "Maybe it has something to do with that magical flower you found," he said. Urdess thought for a moment. "That could be," he said. "Well, I hope you find the answers you're looking for," said the narrator. "Thanks," said Urdess. "I hope so, too." And with that, the dragon and the narrator went their separate ways, each wondering about the mysteries of the universe. Chapter 5: Gestures of Goodwill. Urdess the Helpful was resting in his cave after another successful day of problem-solving. As he stretched his wings, he couldn't help but smile at the way he'd helped the villagers solve their issues. Just then, a thought struck Urdess as he stretched wings in his yawning cave mouth at dusk. Though he cherished recent strides easing villages' worries, were not all people, whether villagers, trolls, or outcasts, equally deserving of goodwill gestures that could mend divides? Perhaps sincere compassion alone might secure elusive unity amidst petty feuds. Suddenly, raised voices echoed from the whispering forest fringe. "Blasted beast ought to face claws for such ruthless destruction." Slithering nearer, intrigued Urdess overheard squirrels chittering heatedly to rabbits and raccoons regarding some merciless creature's attacks on beloved forest havens. They meant confronting the intimidating prowlers soon without a care for consequences. Sensing these passionate yet unprepared animals might provoke disaster, the conflicted dragon felt duty-bound trying to resolve the situation reasonably somehow. But where discord brought raised hackles, persuading all parties lower suspicions and break bread together seemed an impossible dream. Or did it? Summoning his courage, compassionate Urdess stepped forward to initiate fragile dialogue. Compassionate Urdess cleared his throat gently, causing the incensed animals to pause their fury and eyed the dragon warily. Before tensions erupted anew, the narrator raised a reassuring hand. "Please friends, hear our peaceful mission before reacting in fear. This is Urdess the Helpful, whom many tribes know well." Murmurs rippled at the renowned name as hackles lowered a notch. "Might we humbly serve as mediators regarding your distressing beast dilemma?" Squirrels and raccoons traded uneasy but considering looks. One elderly rabbit thumped a foot tentatively. "Suppose it's worth a try, though I don't expect talking will thwart those nasty claw marks ravaging our burrows." Urdess smiled softly, a faraway glint in his ageless eyes. "Progress lies not in grand solutions, but small shared steps, my friend." After a long, tense silence, the assembled animals grudgingly agreed. "Right, now who knows where this predator's den lies?" Raccoons murmured a few clues, and the group set off to investigate. Urdess and his companions traveled deep into the forest, passing ruined dens and broken trees. "This beast is a terror indeed," said Urdess. "Yes, and he must be stopped," said a squirrel. Continuing deeper into ravaged woods, uneasy travelers clutched one another closer against encroaching twilight. All seemed deafeningly hushed, the only sounds their racing hearts pounding. Without warning, an earth-shattering bellow burst from tangled thickets ahead. Trees quivered violently as all creatures cried out, clutching each other in alarm. Paralyzed seconds later by primal terror, the company witnessed with shuddering disbelief massive haunches heaving skyward, then two glowing crimson eyes glared down from high boughs through the gloom. Jaws dropped in shock and horror beholding this towering colossus. Fangs like broadswords lined a slavering maw big enough to swallow them all whole. The petrified animals realized no conceivable diplomacy could tame such an aggressive behemoth. They were utterly doomed. But the imposing monster seemed more bewildered than belligerent as it sniffed the air inquisitively, its rumbling growls almost sounding apologetic. "It's just a misunderstanding," said Urdess, as he took a step toward the giant creature. "Are you crazy?" said the squirrel. "That thing will eat you." Urdess continued to walk toward the beast, and the rest of the animals followed nervously. "What are you doing?" whispered the squirrel. "I'm trying to help," said Urdess. The giant monster growled and snorted, but didn't attack. Urdess stood in front of the beast, looking up at it. "You're not a bad guy, are you?" he asked. The giant monster just looked down at him, blinking. "I think he's just scared," said Urdess. "How can a monster be scared?" said the squirrel. "Everyone's scared sometimes," said Urdess. The giant monster grunted and then slowly walked away into the forest. "Wow," said the squirrel. "I told you he wasn't a bad guy," said Urdess. With the danger past, the animals breathed a collective sigh of relief. "That was amazing," said the squirrel. "It was nothing," said Urdess. "Don't be so modest," said the squirrel. "Well, thank you," said Urdess. Urdess and the other animals walked back through the forest, discussing the encounter. "That was pretty scary," said the rabbit. "Yeah, but we made it through," said Urdess. "Thanks to you," said the rabbit. "I just did what anyone would have done," said Urdess. A few dawns later, while surveying the recovering forest, a distant rumbling shook the earth as the giant beast lumbered into view, clutching something shimmering. With a snorting grunt, he extended a massive clenched paw and unfurled his leathery digits to reveal a smoothly sculpted crystal of intricate beauty glowing azure. As Urdess graciously accepted the gift, fuller light revealed the mysterious beast's towering frame covered in jagged dark plates. Imposing antlers branching wildly like gnarled tree boughs cast wicked shadows. Most striking of all, the giant's stony torso and limbs were embedded with clusters of vivid crystals trailing smoke and pulses of molten light as if barely containing fiery might within. Transfixed by the primal vision, Urdess bowed in humble thanks once more. Solemn as granite, the horned colossus nodded, eyes twin blue stars, before retreating between the ancient sentinels. Later, while resting by a stream, Urdess admired the mysterious gift. "What an amazing creature," said the narrator. "He certainly is," said Urdess. "Where did you say he came from again?" asked the narrator. "I'm not sure," said Urdess. "He just sort of showed up one day and started causing trouble." "Well, he seems to have mellowed out a bit," said the narrator. "You can say that again," said Urdess. The giant creature's gift was beautiful, but Urdess knew there was more to it than meets the eye. There were secrets hidden within its depths, and Urdess was determined to uncover them. One night, Urdess couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the gift from the giant creature. Something about it was nagging at him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He finally gave up and decided to go for a walk. As he walked through the forest, he heard a strange noise. It sounded like a combination of growling and whining. Urdess followed the sound and came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a large boulder, and sitting on top of the boulder was a creature like no other Urdess had ever seen. It was huge, at least twice the size of Urdess. Its body was covered in rough, rocky scales. Its head was shaped like a hammer, and its eyes glowed red. Urdess approached the creature cautiously. The creature watched him closely. "What are you?" asked Urdess. The creature didn't answer. "Can you understand me?" asked Urdess. The creature just stared at him. Urdess reached out his hand and placed it on the creature's head. The creature didn't move. "Are you friendly?" asked Urdess. Again, the creature didn't answer. Urdess sighed. He was about to turn and walk away when the creature began to glow. The glow grew brighter and brighter until it was blinding. Then, suddenly, the light disappeared, and in its place stood a young girl. "Hello," she said. Hello," replied Urdess. "Greetings, I am Aurelia of the Misty Isles," said the girl shyly. "A terrible enchantress trapped me shapeshifted ages ago in her jealousy over my people's power to traverse planes. Urdess nodded in empathy, having endured his abrupt body-altering plights before. As they swapped more fantastical tales, a glinting familiarity in the symbols etched along her amulet struck him with questions. "From whence came the gift you bear, young Aurelia?" asked Urdess. Its markings stir foggy memories within somehow. "This amulet and these mist owls are likely tied by the threads of history to our dragon ancestors," she agreed. "Ancient runes hint first hybrid nobles led my people in eras before turmoil wiped records." Urdess felt uneasy ripples down his spine at the revelation. As the first stars winked frosty overhead, Aurelia turned to him expectantly. Would reconnecting with her lost magical brethren reveal the heroic heritage slumbering in his soul? What other awakening did destiny have in store? Aurelia smiled and reached out her hand. "Will you come with me?" she asked. Urdess looked at her, unsure of what to do. He wanted to help her, but he didn't know if he could trust her. "I'm sorry," said Urdess. "I can't." "Please," said Aurelia. "I need your help." Urdess thought for a moment. He could see the sadness in her eyes, and he didn't want to let her down. "Hey narrator," said Urdess, "do you think I should help her?" "It's up to you," said the narrator. Urdess hesitated, then he took a deep breath and nodded. "All right," said Urdess. "I'll do it." Aurelia's face lit up, and she smiled. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome," said Urdess. The dragon and the girl set off into the night, not knowing what lay ahead. "Well, that was unexpected," said the narrator. "You can say that again," said Urdess. "Do you think you can trust her?" asked the narrator. "I don't know," said Urdess. "She seems nice, but I'm not sure." "Just be careful," said the narrator. Urdess nodded, but he wasn't sure what to expect. "So, where are we going?" asked the narrator. "To the Misty Isles," said Aurelia. "Never heard of it," said the narrator. "No one has," said Aurelia. "It's a place of magic and mystery, guided between towering azure stone arches engraved with winged guardians." Aurelia led Urdess and the storyteller into a resplendent mist-veiled city where dragon and elf denizens bearing the same crest insignia watched from graceful bridges spanning the sparkling canals. "Are those ancient hybrid kin?" marveled wide-eyed Urdess, seeing aspects of his elongated silhouette reflected from the beings meandering in harmony. As he gazed around enchanted streets more familiar than foreign, a trembling elder approached to clasp his claws tearfully. "Young prince, you have returned as foretold to restore what bitterly slipped away," she spoke with hope rekindled. As Urdess listened to tales of shrouded memories aligned with feelings stirred within, a conviction grew that his heroic heritage and future destiny were inextricably tied to restoring this ancestral realm and righting past wrongs. As word spread of the foretold savior's arrival, denizens gathered in hushed awe to meet living legends suddenly made scale and snout. Urdess shifted self-conscious pause under the unexpected reverence until Aurelia clasped forearms bracingly. "Worry not, they mean only love and freedom long denied by ignorance," she reassured gently before turning to channel the hopeful crowd's energy. "Now our honored guest shall be granted every lost lore scrap and royal chronicle tied to our ancestors' tragic exodus." Soon unfurled scrolls and cracked tablets filled majestic halls as scribes translated fables nearly forgotten over shadowy seasons. One recurring title gave even skeptical Urdess pause: the chosen intercessor fabled to one day return, restoring justice across realms through compassion's grace rather than force. Could scatter myths predicting this peaceable prophecy converge upon humble Urdess? As more fragments fused, the revelations threatened to compound until the reluctant hero retreated outside, seeking solace beside Aurelia near a burbling silver stream to process his swirling thoughts under starlit skies. The revelations were just beginning. Urdess looked at Aurelia and then back at the scrolls. "I'm not sure I can do this," said Urdess. "You can," said Aurelia. "And you must." "Why?" asked Urdess. "Because it is your destiny," said Aurelia. "Destiny?" repeated Urdess. "Is this my destiny?" "Yes," said Aurelia. "I can feel it." Urdess looked up at the stars. "What do you think?" asked Urdess. "Me?" asked the narrator. "Yes," said Urdess. "What do you think about all of this?" The narrator thought for a moment. "I think you have a big responsibility ahead of you," said the narrator. "But I think you can handle it." "Thanks," said Urdess. As he contemplated the narrator's encouraging words, a glint in the moonlight caught his eye. A silver lily swaying by the brook's edge seemed to beckon with a faint whisper. "That's a very unusual flower," said Urdess. "Indeed it is," said Aurelia. "How did it get here?" asked Urdess. "Magic, of course," said Aurelia. Urdess smiled and rolled his eyes. "Of course," he said. Kneeling gently amidst silver mists swirling along the brook, Urdess cupped the glimmering lily to inspect closer, transfixed by the delicate aura. As probing claws neared the luminescent petals, sparks suddenly erupted from the pistol's core. With a blinding flash, the landscape evaporated into pure white limbo. Shielding wide eyes, Urdess felt formless space-wrapped penetrative warmth around his trembling essence. Then an affectionate voice echoed through the pleasant void. "Be still your fretful fire, my child, and have faith in the flame eternal within even the most fragile blossom when fanned by courage." Inhaling deep surrender, a glowing field soon emerged underfoot where the lily now sprouted tall as oak trees, their monolithic pistils revolving slowly like psychic sentinels. As realizations crystallized within the wondering dragon, one turned slowly to face him eye to infinite eye. Transfixed in understanding, Urdess smiled trails of smoke. He was ready for whatever lay down destiny's flowing currents now, no matter how far. The storyteller looked at Urdess and then at the flowers. "These are very strange flowers," he said. "Indeed they are," said Aurelia. "Where did they come from?" asked the narrator. "That's a good question," said Aurelia. Urdess looked at the flowers and then back at the others. "They're from another dimension," said Urdess. Aurelia and the storyteller looked at him, surprised. "How did you know that?" asked the narrator. Urdess didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the flowers, a faraway look in his eyes. "Urdess?" asked Aurelia. But the dragon was lost in his own thoughts. The narrator looked at Urdess and then at the flowers. "Well, that was interesting," said the narrator. Urdess sat down on the grass and sighed. "Yes, it was," said Urdess. "Are you okay?" asked Aurelia. "Yeah," said Urdess. "Just tired." "Okay," said Aurelia. Urdess looked over at the flowers. "They're pretty, aren't they?" he said. "Yes, they are," said Aurelia. "And powerful," added the storyteller. Urdess nodded. "They could change the world," he said. "Indeed, they could," said Aurelia. After a few moments of silence, Aurelia turned to Urdess. "Let's go home," she said. Urdess looked at her and then back at the flowers. "Yes," he said, "let's go home." With that, the dragon, the girl, and the storyteller headed home, leaving the flowers for their mysterious purpose. The trio headed back toward the portal. Urdess couldn't believe what he'd just experienced. He'd seen a new world, learned a new language, and met some new friends. Pausing at the shimmering veil between realms, Aurelia clasped forearms with Urdess in fond farewell for now. "My magical homeland and your noble domain both owe great gratitude for the courage shown, my friend. But destiny now charts twin journeys for each, together again when fates decree." Transdimensional flower perfumes lingered as the dragon watched her wraith-like form fade into a stream of stars stretched toward iridescent galaxies unknown but unconsciously familiar. Though already changed by magnificent mysteries revealed, he sensed this marked merely the close of Chapter 1 in their interconnectivity. Smiling knowingly skyward with smoke tendrils spiraling whimsically heavenward, contented Urdess turned homeward while Aurelia glided into the great cosmic sea between worlds to subtly guide from afar across distance and dreams. As familiar native topography returned under tireless wings, Urdess glided gracefully down amidst bittersweet emotions to his long-vacated lair, finding fresh perspective for old spaces haunted now with possibilities both daunting and awesome. Settling wearily amongst his glimmering trove with a contented sigh, the day's events replayed through memory's theater. Had mere hours passed or eons in crystalline realms witnessing worlds within worlds unveiled? Chuckling at temporal trivialities, the dragon stroked his snout thoughtfully through lingering silver mists concealing yet catalyzing fated new chapters poised to transform not just dragon, but perhaps reality itself through courage's conscious ripples. Tomorrow's first light would paint vistas once traversed by mythical hybrid ancestors, their immortal echoes resonated still within destiny's awakening roar. Beyond mountain horizons unfurled the beckoning sky without limits or divisions where winged beings danced freely, and in his breast whispered the lilies, eternal flames of freedom's passion, urging him onward. Soaring on the wind, the dragon let his wings carry him up into the sky. As he flew higher and higher, he could see the whole world spread out below him. It was a beautiful sight. "Well, that was certainly an adventure," said the narrator. "It sure was," said Urdess. "So, what do you think about it all?" asked the narrator. Urdess thought for a moment. "I think it's a lot to take in," he said. "Indeed it is," said the narrator. As the dragon and the narrator soared through the air, they discussed the adventures they'd had and the things they'd learned. "There's so much to see and do," said Urdess. "Yes, there is," said the narrator. The dragon and the narrator continued their journey, exploring the world and having new adventures. They made friends and helped people, and as they went on their way, they learned more and more about themselves and the world around them. "This is incredible," said the narrator. "What is?" asked Urdess. "All of it," said the narrator. "I've never seen anything like this before." Urdess looked out at the horizon and smiled. Yeah, he said, me neither. As the two continued their journey, they explored new places and met new people. They discovered hidden treasures and uncovered lost secrets. And as they went on their way, the narrator knew that they would never forget the adventures they'd had or the lessons they'd learned. Urdess smiled to himself, feeling his destiny's wind stirring in his wings. As he soared higher and higher into the clouds, he thought about the adventure that lay ahead. He had a feeling it was going to be an amazing ride. Epilogue: when one door closes. Settling back within familiar craggy caverns, Urdess found routines now mysteriously foreign. Every small habit echoed somehow into newfound infinity context. Strange to sip old thoughts from a vessel of stardust brimming with cross-dimensional nectars. Even patient listening grew exhausting against lifetimes unfolding yesterday in a single beat. Had centuries truly winged past since dawn's first flights, overflowing simple joy of untried youth? Now each flapping minute towed ethereal chain reactions. Smiling wistfully, the dragon knew nostalgia and destiny dueled daily across inner skies. Approaching gently, the narrator placed a steadying palm on his old friend's shoulder. It's okay to mourn and celebrate the milestones behind while embracing futures unknown, he offered kindly. Our chronicle approaches its final verses, but think of next lyrics. Your choices may inspire scribes not yet born to sing of awakened legend. Ah, thanks, kind narrator, replied the dragon, sighing. Yet what if one's soul song remains a lonely solo amidst shifting seas of change? I've grown accustomed to my peaceful ruminations and routine rescues, but now find myself restless for greater purpose. I can only guess at your heart's longing, my friend. But if a hero's calling beats within, fate's doors may open soon for stepping beyond comfortable confines. The next day, Urdess woke up early and headed outside. As he walked through the woods, he couldn't help but think about the past. He'd been through so much, and yet, here he was, still going strong. The sun was shining brightly, and the birds were singing. It was a beautiful day. Suddenly, he heard a noise. He turned and saw a dragon flying overhead. Hey, said Urdess. Hello, said the dragon. What are you doing here? Asked Urdess. Just passing through, said the dragon. Oh, said Urdess. He watched the dragon fly off into the distance. Wow, said the narrator. That was pretty cool. I know, said Urdess. Hey, I have an idea, said the narrator. Let's go on an adventure. An adventure? Asked Urdess. Where? I don't know, said the narrator. Somewhere new and exciting. Urdess thought for a moment. Okay, he said. The dragon and the narrator set off on their adventure. As they walked through the woods, they talked about all the things they'd seen and done. I'm really glad we did this, said the narrator. Me too, said Urdess. The dragon and the narrator continued on their way, exploring new places and having new adventures. I can't believe we're actually here, said the narrator. I know, said Urdess. They looked out at the ocean and took in the sights. It was an amazing view. So, what do you think we should do next? Asked the narrator. Urdess shrugged. I don't know, he said. Well, we could always go back home, suggested the narrator. Nah, said Urdess. We can figure something out. The dragon and the narrator continued their journey, discovering new places and having new adventures. It's getting late, said the narrator. I know, said Urdess. Do you think we should head back? Maybe, said the narrator. The dragon and the narrator were enjoying their adventure, but they knew that it couldn't last forever. You know, said the narrator, there are some great places nearby that we haven't seen yet. Really? Asked Urdess. Yeah, said the narrator. Urdess and the narrator were walking along the beach when they saw a dragon flying overhead. Hey, said Urdess. Hello, said the dragon. Where are you going? Asked Urdess. To a different realm, said the dragon. Can I come with you? Asked Urdess. No, said the dragon. The dragon flew off into the distance. Wow, said the narrator. Yeah, said Urdess. I want to go to another realm. Well, there's nothing stopping you, said the narrator. Urdess looked up at the sky. What are you thinking about? Asked the narrator. Everything, said Urdess. Like what? Asked the narrator. Like how big the world is, said Urdess. How small we are compared to it. The narrator nodded. You know, he said, there's no reason you can't go on your own adventure. Yeah, said Urdess. That's what I'm thinking. The dragon and the narrator sat there on the beach, watching the sunset. It was a beautiful sight. This is nice, said the narrator. Yes, it is, said Urdess. But deep down, he knew that he couldn't stay there forever. He needed to move on, to see new things and explore new places. Well, said the narrator, if you ever get tired of exploring, you can always come back here. Thank you, said Urdess. The dragon and the narrator stayed there for a while, enjoying the sunset. Then, Urdess stood up. "I think it's time for me to go," he said. "All right," said the narrator. They walked back through the woods to where their journey had started. "I had a good time," said Urdess. "Me too," said the narrator. Urdess smiled and then turned and walked away. The narrator watched him go. "Well," he said to himself, "that was a pretty good adventure." And then he turned and headed back home. As the narrator ambled away, a sudden chill swept along Urdess' scales. He was alone again, as if non-existent for years in the span of moments. Was this the beginning of an eternal farewell? As he watched his only companion vanish between trees, the dragon pondered New Solitude's significance. Though their friendship was short-lived, the storyteller's encouraging words and guidance would linger long past his own dust. Perhaps the greatest legacy any soul leaves isn't monuments or books, but the seeds sown for future generations. Soaring skyward, Urdess resolved to carry his beloved companion's wisdom beyond this realm and into infinite others. A gusting wind blew as Urdess ascended higher and higher. As the world grew smaller beneath him, he couldn't help but feel a little sad. He would miss his friends, his home, his life, but he knew that it was time to move on. And so, he flew higher and higher, until the world was just a distant memory. Urdess soared above the clouds, looking down at the world below. He could see everything from up here, and it was a beautiful sight. "Hey, wait for me," said the narrator. Urdess looked down and saw the narrator trying to keep up. "You're going too fast," said the narrator. "Sorry," said Urdess. He slowed down a bit and let the narrator catch up. "This is amazing," said the narrator. "I know," said Urdess. "I can't believe we're actually doing this." The dragon and the narrator continued their journey, exploring new places and having new adventures. As they traveled, the narrator told stories of his life and the adventures he'd had. Pausing amidst emerald clouds, Urdess turned to the storyteller, keeping pace faithfully beside him. In that moment, the dragon knew this chapter's greatest reward lied not in strange lands traversed, but sensitivity shared open and unguarded. True treasures shine not external but awakened within souls seeing one another's highest truth. No matter the mysteries or trials destined still, all seem less daunting now, for though skies stretch endless above emerald dreams, the two voyagers glide as one current joined. Beyond realms visible beat twin hearts soaring free and joyful, transformed by truth revealed one vulnerable glimpse at a time. Inspired by this unexpected kinship, Urdess vowed to always carry a part of his new friend wherever fate carried him. Though they would likely never meet again, the dragon would never forget their adventure and the lessons they had learned. As the dragon and the narrator looked out at the world, they were filled with hope for the future. "This is amazing," said the narrator. "I know," said Urdess. "It's so beautiful." They flew over mountains and valleys, forests and deserts. "I'm so glad we did this," said the narrator. "Me too," said Urdess. They had experienced more in the past few days than they had in their whole lives, and they knew that it would be something they would never forget. Urdess smiled and looked over at the narrator. "Are you ready for another adventure?" he asked. "Always," said the narrator.
Author's note. And so another chapter draws to a close on this fantasy epic crossing misty frontiers. Within and without, throughout our travels alongside brave yet ever-growing Urdess, themes arose exploring the quiet courage required in building connections, even amid those seemingly different, through perseverance and compassion have gradually gave a voice. Former strangers became steadfast allies, even altering the fabrics of reality themselves when unity took flight. By seeking empathy before judging hardship, the strongest foundations of hope often reveal themselves waiting within all along. Patience allows light to dawn when shadows loom. Even reluctant heroes write legendary sagas, simply by living from the heart, come what may. As friends now part changed by their intertwined journeys, fresh horizons await touched by the sincere care and wisdom imparted. By carrying the other story as our own, new realms unfold destined to transform each soul who dares live the questions that stir restless wings towards our highest truth. The destination glows closer with every uplifting risk taken. To you, insightful reader and courageous dreamer, here's to ever evolving the sacred art, becoming. May the next adventure find you, dear friends. Thank you for reading this book.
Rough. What a journey we've had with Urdess Ascending, don't you think? I'm Huggable Howler, your guide back to reality after this fantastic escapade. I hope your heart is as full as mine, and your spirit as uplifted as Urdess's wings. Today's story was more than just an adventure, it was a reminder of the power of courage, understanding, and the endless sky of possibilities that lies before us. If you enjoyed this story, Don't forget to howl about it to your friends and pack members. And for more enchanting tales, keep tuning into Howl Hub. Until next time, keep wagging your tails and chasing your dreams.